Again, this does not fix a broken idea. You can get someone's attention with a broken idea that's never going to work. So you need a good idea. When you have a good idea, you need to do everything possible to get their attention in a weird, strange way that they have not seen before.
All right, keep your pens out. I want you to write something else down.
Sorry. That's why I was trying to smash the cell phone that wouldn't smash. I should have tried before.
I want you to write this down. I will never write anything boring again. Write it down. I will never write anything boring again. Okay? Now I want you to put down your pens and stand up. Now I want you to raise your right hand. Now I want you to say it out loud with me. I will never write anything boring. Say it.
I will never write anything boring.
Okay, good. Good. You can sit down now. As Matt said before, the reason why is no one wants to read your shit. They don't want to. You have to make them. So let's talk about definitions. Let's talk about what a lead is, just so everyone's clear. Your lead is your first 3 to 5 pages of your promotion, or up to the first subhead. Okay, it's probably going to be upset. And all the stuff we're talking about today, there's going to be exceptions to the rule. We're just trying to give you the general principles of what a lead is. So you're going to find exceptions, but generally that's what a lead is. It includes your headline complex. It's other than your idea, it's the most important part of your promotion because it's the bridge between your prospect's reality and your big idea. That's the bridge in between your idea and the prospect. Its sole purpose is to grab your prospect's attention and inflame their interest and desire to read the remainder of your promotion, including your offer. That's what a lead is. So I want to talk to you about hooks, because hooks are kind of a related idea to leads. You can pass this out, Lloyd. Who read the promotion I handed out last week, the lead for what never to eat on an airplane? I'm just curious. Did you guys guess what you should never eat on an airplane? Throw out some things.
Either chicken or fish.
Chicken or fish?
Nothing.
Any other?
What'd you say?
Nothing.
Okay, close.
I
Yeah.
believe I've heard that.
All right. Well, the answer of what never to eat on an airplane is food. I think the copywriter, or I talked to someone who knew the copywriter, and they said food. If you eat food on an airplane, this is probably in the 1970s, you'll get sick. It's probably changed now, hopefully. Talking about hooks, like that's a pretty effective hook, and we'll talk about a little bit in a minute why that hook was so, why it hooked you basically. But I'll start with another definition of a hook from John Carlton. He says a hook is an incongruous juxtaposition of compelling sales ideas. That's a mouthful. Incongruous juxtaposition of compelling sales idea. So what does incongruous mean? What does incongruent mean? It means, from the dictionary, not the same, not harmonious, incompatible, or out of place. So basically what John Carlton's saying as far as what a hook is, and a hook is kind of an idea that's related to a lead, is that things out of place get our attention. That's where the pattern interrupt is. So when Joe brought in a sledgehammer today to the copy camp, that was a little bit out of place. When he threw what you thought was a phone on the ground and stomped it, or hit
Tried
it with
to
a hammer,
break it.
yeah, that was out of place.
You need a bigger sledgehammer.
So when you think about leads and like what you need to do to get someone's attention, what you need to do for path, you got to think of something that's out of place, incongruent, seemingly incongruent. So think about dramatic ironies or apparent contradictions. There's a famous promotion from way back in the day, how a bald-headed barber helped save my hair. Right. Wouldn't help me. There's also a famous headline from a newspaper, a tabloid in New York in the 70s. Headless body found in topless bar. So,
I've never seen that one before.
yeah,
That's really good.
yeah. The guy just died recently. I wrote it.
Jeez, that's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah. So great hooks, like great stories, are about creating conflict. You're trying to like shake people up in their day. If it's again, that's the opposite of how to describe the opposite of tapping somebody on the shoulder, okay, or being polite or going, "Can I get your attention?" Like that's not going to work. You got to like grab them by the throat. A couple other concepts about leads. Rule of one. Are you guys familiar with that? The basic idea of the rule of one is your lead should be about one big idea. Sounds common sense, but you'd be surprised how many people make that mistake when I've reviewed copy. Rule of one, it should just only be about your big idea. It shouldn't be about different ideas thrown in there.
Can I
Yeah.
give
Jump
an
right in.
example of that?
Yeah.
So let me show you an example of not the rule of one. Sometimes people come and they'll pitch an idea and it'll go like this. I have an idea and it's about Bitcoin, but it takes advantage of the US Treasury markets, and there's this biotech company that does it, and I found this guy in Washington State that changed his body by eating this plant-based material. So what do you think? I'm like, I don't know what you just said to me. That is definitely not the rule of one. So maybe there's like 8 ideas that they've tried to pack in there, right? So tell me about the Bitcoin one. Okay, well I got this Bitcoin idea and it's about a secret indicator that could predict the rise of Bitcoin. Okay, well that's the rule of one, right? But you'll be surprised that when you hear people pitch ideas, how many times they get excited by every idea around them and they try to mash that together in a pitch. So it seems like a very simple rule just to make sure you have one thing you're talking about, but you'll be surprised at how many times we will violate that idea. And I find myself doing it all the time too. So, having done it for a while, I still will realize when I'm violating the rule of one and hopefully correct path. But as you guys go through this, you may start pitching ideas and people are going to be like, if they're confused, it may be because you're violating the rule of one. So in your headlines, in your leads, with the idea of the pattern interrupt, make sure you're working with one core idea that you're trying to express and persuade the reader towards.
Another concept, the 4 U's, which we've talked about before. Unique, urgent, useful, ultra specific. In your lead, you should go line by line, sentence by sentence, and see how many of those you can pack in, paragraph by paragraph. They all need to be in there at least once. The more, the better. The more urgent, the more useful, the more ultra specific, the more unique, the better. The 4 P's, which we talked about before: promise, picture, proof, push. Talked about that before. Remember, your push is not to push to get the sale. Your push is just to push them to read the rest of your promotion, which eventually they'll get you your offer, which is where you make the sale. One other mistake I see often beyond the violation of the rule of one is your lead needs a promise. It can have more than one promise. You need one big promise, and other promises are good too, as long as it's not violating the rule of one. I guess other promises related to your big idea. I don't know who said it. It's one of the advertising gurus, but promise is the heart of advertising. Okay, so like one thing you might try to do is take your body copy, meaning where it says "Dear Reader," and see if you can get a promise within 3 finger lengths of your first line, or even not from the "Dear Reader," okay, or hand length. I don't know. Again, you're going to find lots of exceptions to that, but if you're waiting till page 3 to make a promise, that's a big mistake. The sooner you can get that promise in, the better. Promise or something. We'll look at some examples in a minute.
So before we go on any further, let's just back up, and I want to put this again into context, right? So for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about 3 things. Number 1 is having an ordinary idea. Number 2 is turning that ordinary idea into an extraordinary idea. And number 3 is the expression of that extraordinary idea. So just to make sure you guys understand where we are right now, we're in the expression of the extraordinary idea phase. So you have an ordinary idea, you now have an extraordinary idea. How do you express that extraordinary idea in a way that hooks your reader and gets attention? So just before we keep going on with this and keep building upon this, I just want to make sure that that's where we're at right now, is the expression of the extraordinary idea. Not the tap on the shoulder, but the way that you hit them in the face with the sledgehammer on that extraordinary idea. This is the expression of the extraordinary idea section. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that before we kind of go on, because sometimes, you know, we can build upon these things and they get confusing where we are in the process. Like, should I put in the 4 U's here, the 4 P's here? Truth is, it doesn't matter until you have a great idea. Then you have the expression of that, which is the hook, the pattern interrupt. How do you get someone's attention on that idea?
Typically, your first couple of sentences are gonna mirror whatever you have in your headline complex. Again, there's lots of other exceptions on that, but that's a good way to start. Is if you can come up with a great headline, how do you re-express that headline in the first couple of sentences of your sales letter? Okay, where's the button down here? So again, your headline's only job is to get them to read the first line of your sales letter. Can you guess what the job of your first line is? To read the second. Can you guess what the job of the second line is? Sometimes it's called the grease slide. Okay, the grease slide. And right now I'm going to teach you a secret of where you get the grease from that I don't think I've ever seen in any other copywriting courses. So this is pretty unique. Okay, I think the grease for your grease slide is one key emotion. And that emotion, it isn't greed, it isn't fear. That emotion is curiosity. So curiosity is the grease to slide them to where you make the offer.